You're not getting a sermon. You're not getting... Oh, that's very kind of you. Nor are you getting what at one point we planned, which was some closing remarks. And the reason I'm not doing closing remarks, because the idea of that was, so what have you heard, Bishop Paul? The reason I don't want to do that is because this is still part of an ongoing process. And neither I nor anyone else on the bishop's leadership team has had a single moment to look at all the material that you've brought from all the parishes, all the responses to the discussions around the table. So I don't know what to say. Now, I know that comes as a surprise to some of you, because some of you are sitting there thinking there's some hidden next plan on a page already. I'm sorry, if you're sitting there thinking that, you really, really, really don't understand what we're about. We really are about being the people of God together, listening to the voice of God. And at the end of the whole process, my job as bishop will be to say, this is what we've discerned, and then to hold us to that vision. But it's not for me to determine what the answer is. But I do want to offer a couple of reflections from Jeremiah. The people of God were in exile. I was enormously helped by George Lings a few years. George is now retired, but he was head of the Church Army Research Unit for many, many years. I first met George, though, when he was vicar of St. George's in Deal in Kent. And he was the first person, I think, who ever said to me, I think we need to reflect a lot more on the exile of the people of God as the image of more what it's like to be the people of God in Britain and in the West now. Being the people who are scattered abroad amongst others who don't share our faith. Being the people who are committed to being faithful to God, surrounded by a majority of people who think we're stark raving mad. Of course, people in exile are pilgrims. And there were those who were saying to the exiles in Jerusalem, in Babylon, God's going to sort it all out very fast. And Jeremiah had the tough task of being the person whom God called to say, oh, no, he's not. There is no quick fix for you as exiles and strangers and pilgrims. There is a long, slow journey of being faithful where you are. And he says that God's people's good is going to be tied to the good and the well-being of the place in which they now find themselves living, the good and the well-being of the very people who have just smashed to bits their homeland, their temple, who've ruined everything, who've left the poor starving back in Israel, taken the wealthy and the strong into Babylon. And he says, your good as the people of God is totally tied up with the good and the well-being of Babylon. So, build houses, work, marry, have children, have grandchildren. It's that long-term a vision, it's that long-term a task. Seek the welfare of this place and pray for it. When we were planning the conference and thinking about this closing worship, we said, what readings shall we have? And I simply said to the planning group, well, you know my normal Sunday practice is I simply go to the lectionary and I say, whatever's in the lectionary, that's what I preach on. That's the readings we have. It was one of those times when I opened up and I said, goodness me, Lord, how did you tell us to have this weekend with this reading that we hadn't looked at? It was one of those moments saying, okay, you really are the God who overrules here. Because I really do think this is a word from God to us. We are called to be the people of God who seek the welfare of the communities in which we sit, of the community that's covered by the 7 local authorities that we work with, to seek its welfare, to seek its good, its blessing, its well-being, to pray for it. And in so doing, discover who we are as pilgrims in a foreign land. So please now, do not wait until we present a new plan at the Synod in November next year. We are all called to go away from here, to live out and work out what we've heard, what we've discerned. Your task is to share it with the PCCs, with the congregations that you represent. If you don't do it, no one else is going to be able to do it successfully. You really do have the critical role now of sharing it and helping your own congregations, your own communities think, what does it mean to be a whole life disciple, a community of whole life disciples of Jesus, where we are? And we will keep committed to seeking the welfare of these communities and to praying for them. And whatever emerges as some kind of plan, we know that God will throw it apart anyway. But he calls us to be good planners and thinkers. But please don't wait for that process. Just get on with seeking the welfare of the city and praying for it and being whole life disciples where God has called you to be. I'm not sure whether that was a sermon or not in the end.